Al Capone was obsessed with the wrath of God. He spent his life trying to earn his get-out-of-hell-free card. To Capone, God was a real fire and brimstone force who kept score. Capone bribed judges, ran brothels, and ordered hits. Then he gave bundles of cash to the church to balance it out. Most people think of Capone as the face of organized crime, but he saw himself as a man of rules that he thought kept him one step ahead of damnation. In this episode, we'll explore Capone's own 10 commandments, the confessions he made, and the moral gymnastics he used to justify it all. Because when your legacy is built on blood and bootlegging, you need more than a lawyer. You need a loophole in the afterlife. Before Al Capone was Scarface, he was just a smart-mouthed kid from Brooklyn, the son of poor Italian immigrants who crossed the Atlantic with little more than their Catholic faith and a dream. Al Capone blasted his way into the world in 1899. I think that would make him Gen Z of his time. His parents, Gabriele and Teresa Capone, were devout, traditional, and raised their 9 children to know their catechism better than the rowdy street corners. They lived in Brooklyn after all, and that upbringing worked for most of the Capone kids. Al, on the other hand, had trouble with authority and angry nuns. At 14, after mouthing off to a teacher, she hit him, so he hit her back. Catholic school wasn't thrilled with that response, and he never returned. Instead, he went straight into the working-class world of New York's criminal underbelly, learning the ropes from local gangsters who quoted Machiavelli. I mean, he was Italian, right? They're not going to quote Confucius. But here's the twist. Capone never stopped believing in rules, or believing in his own rules, for everybody else. He once told a reporter,
"I've spent the best years of my life giving people the lighter pleasures, helping them have a good time, and all I get is abuse, the existence of a hunted man."
Translation, I'm not the villain here, I'm just misunderstood. In Capone's mind, sin wasn't about breaking the law. Those were someone else's rules. It was about betrayal, cowardice, and dishonor. In other words, if you were loyal to him, you were good. If you crossed him, well, even Jesus flipped a few tables. He followed what you might call a bootlegger's version of the 10 Commandments.
"Thou shalt not snitch. Honor thy gang and thy boss. Thou shalt not steal from me. Keep the Sabbath holy, but also profitable. Thou shalt not kill without a good reason. Thou shalt not stiff your lawyer. Thou shalt bribe in moderation. Too much looks suspicious. Remember the newspapers to keep it spinning in thy favor. Thou shalt wear good suits. Appearance is power. Covet not thy rival's racket, unless you're ready for a turf war."
He didn't write these down, but he might as well have. Capone regularly donated to Catholic charities, funded soup kitchens, and made a show of generosity during the Great Depression. He once said,
"I'm just a businessman, giving the people what they want."
and people wanted booze, especially when it was outlawed. During Prohibition, Capone became the face of an empire, a symphony of speakeasies, bribes, and bullet holes. He used fear like a marketing tool and loyalty like currency. But even in the middle of bloodshed, he kept up the image of a respectable American businessman. He studied the Constitution like it was a weapon. During arrests, he'd cite his rights as an American citizen with theatrical flair. He knew the limits of search warrants, the loopholes in due process, and the art of the strategic silence. He also read books on criminal law, not for the courtroom, but for the street. He stayed ahead of prosecutors by knowing the letter of the law better than some of the men enforcing it. And then there was his obsession with public image. Capone understood the media. He devoured pulp crime novels and mimicked their structure. The bad guy with a heart of gold, the rogue with a personal code. He dressed the part, smiled for the press, and made sure every story had a hero, him. His strategy wasn't chaos, it was calculation, a blend of ancient lessons and modern ambition wrapped in pinstripes. On Sundays, he might attend Mass. On Mondays, he ordered hits. Capone's favorite moral themes revolved around mercy and judgment. He was known to quote Matthew, "Judge not, lest you be judged." but he skipped over the part about turning the other cheek. When arrested, Capone often spoke about forgiveness. He said,
I have no malice toward any. I never hurt anybody who didn't try to hurt me first.
And here's the kicker. In 1931, after years of dodging the law for crimes like racketeering, bribery, and murder, he was finally taken down by tax fraud. During his years at Alcatraz, he reportedly became obsessed with repentance. Fellow inmates recalled him walking in circles in the prison yard, muttering prayers and reading books over and over like they held a secret escape plan. He would talk to himself or to ghosts. Some say he saw the faces of the men he ordered killed. Others say he begged God for mercy out loud. Capone's personal collection included a heavily marked Bible, legal commentaries, and even detective magazines. He highlighted anything related to justice, guilt, or redemption. One inmate recalled hearing Capone whisper,
The wages of sin is death.
He said it over and over like it was a countdown. After his release, Capone lived quietly in Florida. His health declined. Syphilis had ravaged his brain, but even as his memory failed, he still kept his rosary. He once told a visitor,
I know I've done some bad things, but I never stopped believing, never stopped asking.
His wife, May Capone, stood by him through the worst of it, from the media frenzy to the prison visits to the painful final years. She was known for her devotion, and though she kept a low profile, insiders claimed she always carried a Bible in her purse. Capone's legacy is one of contradictions. The gangster who kissed crucifixes, the killer who passed out groceries, the man who made millions breaking laws, and then begged for salvation. He lived by his own gospel, a mix of street wisdom, American legal theory, and pulp hero dramatics. He believed he could play both sides, make peace with God while waging war with everyone else. His words say it all.
You can get much farther with a kind word and a gun than you can with a kind word alone.
So was Capone a gangster? Absolutely. But he was also a tactician, a man who feared judgment far more than jail, who thought he could bend sin like he bent the law and maybe talk his way into heaven. Because if God was watching, Capone was always ready to make a deal. Even in his final days, Capone seemed to wrestle with legacy like it was a rival he couldn't quite whack. He once reportedly asked a priest,
If God forgives everything, then maybe he can forgive me too, right?
He was weak by then and thinking about the end, but the desperation was unmistakable. And yet, despite his repentance, he never fully let go of his old instincts. Rumor has it, he kept a pistol under his pillow well into his last days, just in case. When he passed in 1947, the newspapers called him many things: mob boss, murderer, madman, but not one called him a man of principle. Because for all his schemes and charisma, for all his studied lines and righteous justifications, Al Capone never really escaped judgment. Not from the law, not from the public, and maybe not even from himself. If you like this dive into the twisted morality of one of history's most infamous men, there's more where that came from. So hit subscribe and keep digging into the hidden history dork vault, where every legend has a loophole and every dorky outlaw has words he lives by.